Michael, I wanted to start with you first. The creative team has said that Richie was one of the hardest roles for them to cast because there's so many nuances to him and he serves such a distinct purpose in this overall narrative. Without giving spoilers, what did you read in between the lines regarding this character that made you interested in being part of this project, and how did you help shape his direction and arc?
Uh, Thank you for asking. I think the writing was so good and was so specific. And with a character like Richie, I think um it was without giving anything away, he was kind of a foil to Ruby in like an emotional sense, where he was one of the few people, if not the only person, who could be very honest with her. And
Mm,
that authenticity of character kind of not holding anything back and being very honest and forthright, and without being judgmental, or being judgmental but not being apologetic about it, and also not being mean. He felt like he did feel it felt very specific in this in a sense, but also I think he was ultimately somebody who was comfortable with himself.
yeah.
And that clicked in my head in a way where I was like, it felt like a character, and like a Sam Rockwell kind of character, where he's like kind of in his own world, and he's accepted where he is and who he is. And it's not like he's a great big success, but he's at least comfortable with where he's at, and he's accepted some version of himself. And I think because of that, it frees him up in Ruby's world to be
Yeah.
honest with her. And I think that serves a really great purpose in the story. But
Yeah,
that
I
was
love
all
the
in writing. That was all baked in there from the start for me.
the dynamic between the two of them. And Andre Natch is not only one of the co-showrunners, but she also directed 6 of the 8 episodes. How different is that filming experience when the person who's put pen to paper is also at the helm directing? And how have your own experiences as a director and writer influenced the ways that you work as an actor and interpret scripts and characters like this?
Well, first part, as far as having the writer be the director, I like it because it's one less person sort of weather predicting and interpreting something. It's more straight from the source. So I like that a lot. And then I think just as far as like having directed and then act also, well, you know this as well. Like I think, I don't know, I feel like, and I don't know because I'm not someone who's just acted, but I think it at least gives me an appreciation for how busy they are and what's on their plate. But then
Mm,
also makes me sort of less intimidated to ask a person something
Yeah,
also,
yeah, yeah.
because it's all, any show or production is honestly just sort of figuring things out. It doesn't mean like people don't know what they're doing, but like it's constantly like troubleshooting and also just sort of, I think as an actor, if you've directed, you in most cases have faith in it. Like if something doesn't make sense, it's like, of course, ask, or if you feel to figure out the context of something. But in general, it's like they are looking at the whole world. I'm looking at this moment. So sometimes something might not make sense to me in the moment, and you can ask about it, of course, but like just like have faith that like no, they've spent hours upon hours and days and months
mm,
working on this. So there's sometimes when it seems like this is madness, it's like no, there's a method to it, or like this, something might
mm.
not make sense, but you're just like they know what they're doing. And if they don't, it's on them, but
Right.
no, I think it makes you just sort of like understand everybody's role better, which makes you free to focus on yours more because you've
Mm.
got less
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, the performances are incredible in this show. And Michael, this show is really unlike anything that I've ever seen before. And it plays in all of these different tonal space. Having had the illustrious career that you've had, what is the project that's had the biggest impact on developing your own voice as a comedian and those dramatic beats, as well as, and like Audrey was saying, you also have experience behind the camera. How has that helped you discover how far you can push a scene in either direction?
Um, that's That's a good question. I think the truth is that's what makes Laid such a specific show, is that it's really just the sum of a lot of different parts, because it is a little cross genre, and it feels like a hybrid between a single cam and a multicam. And I've had the opportunity to do both, and they're both so different. But I feel like what Lay does so well is it crosses that line, and marries the two in a way where it does feel it's the right amount of campy, broad, self-serious, self-aware, grounded, emotional, romantic, and dark in moments. And I think that is, again, just it goes, it's just a testament to the writing, because you can set out to do something like this, but when we would have table reads, we would all laugh a lot and be surprised and really enjoy what everybody was doing. So I think it's just a combination of the writing and the the casting, because
Yeah.
it felt really um without trying too hard, without being so effortful, it felt like it struck its own tone easily.
Definitely. Andre, final question for you. With your stand-up background, you've mentioned how it brings flexibility, awareness, and a fearlessness to try new things in your acting. Was there a particular scene in season one that came about that made the final cut because of that approach that you're most excited for audiences to see?
There's a scene. I don't know. Well, anytime. Well, not one scene in particular, I guess, but there's moments with when Zach and AJ are arguing that I really enjoy, where there was some a little more additional freedom there, and a lot of it was obviously it's like written, and then but just shooting those scenes was really fun because we got to get really loose with it and got to try a lot of things in there. And then even on the table reads, you could slip things in and try stuff, and sometimes it would wind up printed in the script the next day. So you just didn't on
I
this
think you
one.
had the best record with that. Like there, you had an improv in a show in the, I think in like one episode that ended up being like the last line of the show.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it kept changing around, but yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. No, so it'd be nice, like in my real life, I call people ding dongs. So it's nice to see Zach calling people ding dongs in there. So I liked that. But yeah, I think it's just, the writing's there already, but then just as the performer, and I like always trying stuff. So it's nice to be given that space, whether it's used or not, ultimately, just to have that freedom creatively to like
Mm.
kind of put your isms into things.